Hey everyone, Sakriyasin here, and in this lesson I'm going to be showing you a technique I use for finding colors and what colors go well together and things like that. So first of all, what I have here are just two painter's wheels. This one is, I'm using Photoshop CS6, and this one's the Len White color wheel, and you can get that if you go to psychro.net. And go to resources. There's a link to where you can download that. And then this one is just the Paint Tool Psi color wheel. So basically both work, and I'm going to show you how to do the same thing using either one. And what I have here is just a color wheel that it's not focused on light or dark. It just goes from saturated around the outside to desaturated in the middle. So in the middle it gets like more gray, and around the outside it's more colorful, bright, vibrant colors. So what's difficult when you're trying to color, especially digitally, it's not so bad traditionally because you just mix paints and then you're sort of limited already, but in digital you're just not limited, so it's very hard to know, out of all these colors, which ones do I pick. And the way I deal with that is to not use all the colors, but rather limit them. And the way I do that is with a gamut mask like this. So this is a teardrop shape, so I just call it the teardrop mask. And what it's done is basically it severely limits how saturated the colors can get, because only one color now can get really saturated. If you think about it, see, there's all these colors, but only one gets saturated, and so you have very few saturated colors, and then quite a lot in the middle, and then a lot more desaturated colors. But you'll notice here, for example, there's no blue, because here's orange and here would be the blues. So instead, if I wanted to use a blue, I would end up having to use one of these blue-gray colors. So, and can rotate this, so I can have any color scheme. Like if I want a green color scheme, then it's like, okay, so these are the colors I can use. And if I wanted to use purple or red or whatever. Anyway, so this just limits it, and this is pretty much, it's not what I use, but it's the idea of what I do. So another way to think about that, because I don't actually, like pull out this and just pick colors from here, because I need to pick light or dark. So I need the ability to control the value as well. So I don't use this. Instead, I just focus on these two. And the way I do it is to, first I pick a main color. So don't worry about all this stuff in the middle right now, because this is including value, right? You get light and dark. Just the outside ones, just this outside ring, to pick a color. So let's say, well, in this one, the main color is this, which is like here. So right here is that color. So this is the main color, right? So I can put that down here. Here's our main color. And then basically in the main color, I'm allowed to use all this. Anything in this triangle is okay. So I could use this color, I could use this color, this color. It's okay, Everything in the main color is doable. But then I'm gonna limit myself in the color directly opposite. So directly opposite of this main color is going to be the complementary color, like that. So I'm going to severely limit this, and if you remember this teardrop, it's the same thing, right? I get a main color that I can make very saturated, and then directly opposite, I can't go here, I have to go very desaturated. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the opposite side, and now I'm going to stay desaturated. So I can use only colors that are in a very low saturation. And that looks like that. So what I've done is I've just blocked out a bunch of the colors I can use. And so I'm only using about 25% of the colors at my disposal. And that's if you go to the opposite color. So you have the main color and then you have the opposite color, right? Here's the opposite color. So the opposite color you can only use this much, whereas the main color you could use the whole thing. And in Paint Tool SAI or in any color wheel where it's a rectangle, it looks more like that. The reason it's a triangle in this is because it's a triangle, and you have to remember that the dark and saturated colors are very limited, so they get very small here, but here they're not, so it's big. Anyway, so then this is directly across. So let's say this main one is at 100%. I can use 100% of this space. Well, this one I can only use 25%. And then if I go to a color like a green, well, then I can use 50% because it's sort of in between, right? It's halfway. So then I can use a 50%, and I can use a, if I was at like a yellow, I could use maybe a 75%. So it just means the closer you are to this main color, the more colors, the more saturated your colors are allowed to be. Does that make sense? Like, and the closer you are to the opposite color, the more desaturated. So when I do this, here I have access to the whole thing. Here I don't have access to the most saturated colors, but I have access to most of the rest of the colors, just not the most saturated. So I've cut out that amount. And this would be for, you know, anything that's close to the main color, but not, you know, not the main color itself. So things that are near the main color would, you could still use a big chunk of them. And then as you get to halfway, it's like, oh, now you have to restrict yourself. And you can only use this many. So you still can use all the light and all the dark, but you can't use that much saturation. I can only go about halfway saturated. And then once I get completely to the opposite side, then I can only use this small amount. So the opposite colors are very desaturated. So in the real world, not real world, but in a practical example of this, what it means is that, bring that guy back. What it means is if I was using green and my main color is this red, I just look, okay, here's red, and I do this by eye. I don't like draw any grids or graphs or anything. I just look by eye like, okay, this red-ish thing is my main color, and this is quite a bit further, and this is my opposite. So this one, I know I can only stay in this area. I'm not allowed to go around here. And this is close, so it's like, probably I can use about this portion. I just sort of guess at it. Like, yeah, I could use a green like that, and it will look okay. I could use a green like that. Would be fine. Could use that. It's okay. Actually, that's a bit too saturated. You have to remember with this triangle one, again, that it's really tricky around the darks too, because the darks are really close to each other, so you have to be careful about, you know, how saturated you let things become. If I wanted to use a purple, I pick the purple and then I say, well, how close or far is it from the main color? And it's about halfway, so maybe I can only use half the full saturation. And so this just gives you colors that work together. So you think about the color in terms of what is the thing. So for instance, let's say my main color was this teal. Okay, so this is my main color. And in this teal world, and usually what I do is I'll just make the whole canvas this color, or whatever, not this teal color, but I'll make it the main color. So if I had the drawing, let's say I'm drawing a guy and he has a terrible drawing. Okay, wow, much better. He has a hat, and the hat is red. So I don't have to really worry about, well, what color is that going to be? I just go to red right away. I go to the color red of what I would expect his hat to be, like what I'm thinking, like of. So maybe that red. Of course, that's not what I'm going to put. I'm not going to put down this red. That looks terrible. But I have to look at, okay, so this is pretty much opposite of my main color, so I'm only going to be able to use a very desaturated color. And I know red is a pretty low value, so maybe that's a bit too dark. Maybe something like this in this world is going to be what red is. And it looks weird right now, but that's because I don't have a lot of other colors around. And you can see like all these other colors, but if you don't have anything to compare, I mean, if you stick with this and put a lot of other colors down, this will start to appear more and more red. So maybe, I mean, I could pump it up a bit, because you also have to use a bit of, discrimination. But yeah, see, maybe this would be a good red. So what I tend to do is I pick the main color, and then let's say he has green grass in the background. Okay, so I pick the main color, and then I go towards my green, and then usually I kick it a tiny bit towards that main color again, just so it's sort of influenced, and then I just stick to the saturation. Like, how close is that? Well, it's pretty close to the main color, so I'm allowed to get quite a bit saturated, so that might be okay. And then it's like, okay, so I can use this color for the grass. All right, so that's the basic idea, but I want to walk you through it in a more practical sense, because that's more sort of theoretical. So let me deal with this. So what I've done is basically I have this sketch, and I made a few layers, and in each layer I just colored with the pencil tool on its own layer. So I have the line art on the top, and I have a video called preparing drawings to be scanned or something for line art. But anyway, it shows how to take a drawing and then, just separate the line art. So yeah, so I just have a layer with each color on its own layer. And this is what I do at first. I just block in the main colors. Now I'm not gonna, right now it seems like they're all together, but I wouldn't do this together. I would have like one image where it's all one color. You don't want to mix them. And the colors you pick sort of depends on the mood and also what you're going for. So for instance, for these like red, I don't know, yellow, like mustard color, and this orangey brown color, these ones are pretty close to a skin tone. So because I know I'm painting a lot of skin, it will be okay. It'll look okay. If I colored it green or blue, for instance, it would look like blue would look fine, but it's gonna look like a nighttime scene. Like all the colors will seem like nighttime-ish. That makes sense. And then like if I pick like an aqua, like what the cat is right now, that might look good for underwater scenes. So it's up to you what colors you pick. But I just picked random ones just because it's fine, and this technique seems to work even with random colors. So one thing I haven't covered is value, and that's something you need to know first. If you don't have your values right, the colors don't really matter. You could have the right idea and it still will look wrong. So to check myself, I'm going to create a new layer above the line art, and I'm just going to fill that with black. And you can set this to either a saturation or color mode, and the layer modes, color or saturation, doesn't really matter which one. And that's just going to, when you turn it on, it's going to make everything black and white. So this way I can check my values. Okay, now I have each of these blocked in, and I use the pencil tool so I get a pure selection. You could have used the lasso and fill it. That's another way of doing it. You can use the pen tool. You can use you can get to this point many different ways. But then I'm going to create a new layer and clip it down. So each person is going to have their own layer that's going to be clipped down, and I'm going to paint on this layer so I don't actually touch this original layer anymore. And I'm going to stop using my pencil and I'm going to switch to a brush. I'm just going to use a chalk brush. You can use whatever brush you want. And then so let's say I'm just going to start painting, and I want to paint this person. Okay, fine. Start with their hair. What color do I want the hair to be? And I'm going to do the local, like the color in my mind. Let's say this person has, say they have like reddish brown hair. Okay, fair enough. Well, I'm going to move towards that color, towards reddish brown. And now, because it's so close to the main color, I'm pretty free in which color I pick. So let's pick that color, put it down, and that's okay. And now because I'm using a brush and not the pencil tool, there's a bit of opacity jitter on it. So like it's not going to be 100% opacity. So some of this color is going to bleed through, and that's what you want. Kind of want it to bleed through because it just adds to create more harmony and also sort of looks cool. It's something that traditional painters will do a lot when they have an underpainting. You just let the underneath color sort of show through in places. So you don't have to, color it perfectly all like this, because what you're doing now is just sort of killing everything. And it's fine, you could do that. I mean, it still works, but I prefer to sort of let some of this color shine through. And I also save this color for shadows. So, if there's a shadow, I sort of won't even fill it in. I don't really color it in too much. I'll let this bleed through. Maybe in the hair I will color the shadows because it needs to be much darker, but for the skin I won't. So let's say her skin is sort of pale, and maybe she looks Asian, so let's say she's Asian. So she's got pale skin, and so what I want to do is move towards the color I would think of, maybe something like this, and then see like how close is it to that. Well, it's pretty close, so I can get sort of saturated if I want, but I need to be light. So let me just put down a color and then test I just turned on my black and white to see how light it is. But yeah, that's fine. And I'm letting some of this pink show through, and then I can just select that in between color. And now, as I said, I'm going to avoid painting in the shadows. I'm going to let those sort of stay pink for now. I'm just going to block in the rest. And because it's a clipping layer and it's tied to this layer, I don't have to worry about the edges. See? I can go on the edge and paint, and it's only going to stay within this part. So yeah, get that, and then I can just sort of color pick from within the image as I go. So there's like a shadow underneath. Maybe I'll, paint a bit in the shadows. But it's sort of all getting harmonized. Like the colors are all working together. Let's say I want white now. Well, what I do for white is I tend to go to whatever's a cool color, because white by nature is cool. That's important. Anything that's gray or white is by nature cool. Not cool as in, oh, it's awesome, but it's a cool color. And so I'm going to jump over to the opposite side, to the blues, and then because I'm in the blues and it's the opposite, I can't go very saturated. So I have to make sure I stay almost gray, and I'll just get the eyes in. And they're in the shadow, so I have to remember that, so I'm going to go a bit darker than I would. And there. And then for the highlights in the hair, I could actually leave it just this pink, and it would be fine. Maybe for this one I will. Just leave that. And I can just fill in the colors a bit more. But, oops, let me just pick some of that original pink, and that's what I'll use for shadows. So now I've sort of got some pretty nice colors, like they're working well together. And let's say I wanted her to have not red hair, because since we said she's Asian, unless Asians are dyeing their hair red, which I'm sure they are, but let's say more like blackish hair, then I'm going to go over to the blues, get very desaturated. I'm going to use that as a color, something like this. In which case I can't have that pink for the highlight anymore. And even now I'm sort of painting and I'm varying my pressure, so I let a little bit of that pink show through. You can see here, see? There's a bit of pink showing through. Put that down, and then I can sort of fill in the colors. But you do have to know where your lights and your darks are going to go. And then for the highlights, I'm just going to get a bit lighter, but I'm going to make sure I stay very desaturated because I am in the opposing color. But see, even some of that red still shows through, but it looks fine. It kind of looks cool. So you don't have to worry too much about that. And gives you okay colors. So, all right, let's say this person's done. Let's just check the values. The values are okay, but they could be brighter. It's quite dull in the face, and that's not a bad thing, but just gonna add a bit more contrast. Maybe I'll add some pink to the cheeks, just a bit more. And yeah, so there, that's sort of working. And usually what I do after is I just go over the line art layer and then I get rid of the lines. And this is optional for you, you know, if you want your lines, all your lines to show, or if you want to make it a bit more painterly and start to get rid of the lines, then you can by just going over the line art layer. Okay, so let's do the cat, because it's just so much different. So I have to find the cat layer and then go on the layer above. Let's say the cat's white. So this one's easier because I just go to white, and white's a cool color, as I said. So we're allowed to use saturated colors. Just take that and do that. Just sort of block in the cat. And again, I'm letting a bit of that teal show, especially when it turns to the shadows. So you do have to understand forms and everything. It doesn't excuse you from learning values and all that. You still have to do that. It's just, see, I get the shadow. I let the teal just be the shadow, and it looks fine. But let's say I want the cat to have pink ears. Well, that's where I'm going to have to go to the opposite corner. But now I can't use all these really saturated colors that I would like to use. I have to go to a much more desaturated color for the pink. And see, it still reads as pink, even though it looks gray. But compared to the teal, it reads as pink and it's fine. Maybe a little pink nose. See, still looks good. So that's the thing to keep in mind, is that you find your main color, and then every other color is dependent on what that first color you picked is. It's not gonna just, can't just use every color. Let's say the eyes are like a green. Well, green is close to my main color, which is teal, so I can use most of the greens, and that's still gonna look good. There we go. Maybe make a bit of a dark shadow for the cat's eyes, and a light highlight. And I'll do that on the layer above the line art. Just get a bit of a highlight. There we go. See? Cat's done pretty much. And the colors, just have to get the ears. Colors are working and it looks fine, right? Even though this is not pink, but it's like a very desaturated thing. You probably wouldn't think of it. You'd probably think for pink to just go ahead and do that and get that color. And it's just like, it sort of hurts the eyes. So what you can do is you can cheat a bit and maybe bump up the saturation a little bit more than, like, you don't have to stick to this rule, but it's a good starting point. So yeah, and especially you'll notice like this part looks more, let's see, this part as it looks more gray because it's close to this paper texture, whereas the nose looks much more pink because it's surrounded by the blue. So if I want, what I could do is just go to the background and actually just paint that in as the original color. Maybe go a bit darker. See? And then as I paint that in, now it starts to read again more like a pink. So colors are what they are based on what is around them. And same with this red person. Right now they look very red, almost like, I don't know, they're burning up, they got a fever or something. But if I put in the background color, and the background color is basically just the same as the original starting color, then now it starts to feel more correct, and it feels like, oh yeah, that works well, that works fine. It looks fine. So yeah, I could paint in the neck. What am I doing? Oh, I hadn't paint. I can paint the neck in like so. And that's fine. Let's just give her, just cause I can give her a blue shirt, and let's see what color that would be. It's very desaturated because it's in the opposite. So I'll put it down, but see, it still looks sort of blue, even though really, what color is that? It looks gray. And because it's blending with the colors underneath, you can see like this part in this wheel thing shows up as a blue, but then this part, where it's a bit more transparent rather, that shows up actually as a purple, which it is, it's a purple, but it reads as blue because of the surrounding color. And then you got your other two characters, and I can start merging these, it's fine. Got your other characters, and this one's like this mustard color. So okay, so mustard color, what's the opposite color? It's very desaturated, sort of navy blue. And something that's good to do, especially if you have things like this, these weird colors, and this is just my own style, so that's why it's all weird, but it's to make the opposite color the color of another part of the image seems to work well. So for instance, I'm making the hair the opposite color. Let's say you had a lot of one color and you want a color to sort of play off that, then you can just use the complementary color. And if you want, you could go a bit more saturated if you want to put hits of something that's really supposed to catch your eye, then you could do that. For instance, maybe I could make the eyes that way, but it's gonna be out of this whole working color thing, this nice little setup we've got. So use it sparingly, but again, experiment. You don't have to stick with what I'm showing you. You can do many different things. So anyway, let's say I get this hair down, and eventually this becomes pretty fast, you know. I'm just slowing it down for the sake of this tutorial, but I could knock that in pretty quick and then start painting and get like, okay, maybe her skin is a bit more olive in tone, so it's like, okay, I can go pretty saturated just because her skin is already like that, and then get that in there and just let some of that underneath color show up. And now for the shadows, because they're much darker, I need to use a different color. So I usually trend towards warmer colors for shadows, almost always. So if you remember, I was saying that white is always a cool. Well, for shadows, I tend, especially the deep shadows, tend to go towards a much more warm color, often towards reds. But sometimes you can't do that because you're in the opposite color, right? Like if I was in a teal color, I can't really go that warm, but sometimes I just do it anyway, because you can sort of cheat it. And maybe this person needs some highlights. This skin color looks really strange, I think. I think I've messed up on it, so I'm going to lighten it a bit. It'll still work. I mean, the colors themselves work. It's just, you know, my choice of what color to pick may not have been so good. But that's okay. You just try it and then try something else. And oh, if that works, good. And if not, try something else. And something else you can do if you want to sort of liven up the shadows is take the opposite color and you can sort of paint that inside into some of the shadows. Not the really deep warm shadows, but in some of the other shadows. As you get close to the mid-tone again, you want to saturate that up a bit. So anyway, this one is not looking very great, but it's okay. Let me add the background. And what are you, mustard person? There you are. So let me just pick that color, put it in the background. Yeah, already that's sort of working a bit better because it now fits again. It's so important to remember that the color is only what is surrounding it. That's how you see what a color is based on what it's around. If you don't have that surrounding color, the color doesn't make sense. And that's why it's very bad to start off with just white. It's not bad to have a background that's white because white has no saturation. So it's going to look fine no matter what if you have a white background. The thing is, you don't want to start off white because then how do you know what to judge things on? So even for this guy, let me just block in his background real quick. And let me give the mustard lady some eyes. Eye colors. Gonna go towards a cool. And for the lips, let's see, I can go pretty saturated for the lips just because she's already, like, that mustard color is not that far away. Maybe I can't go that saturated. But it is going to be a bit more of a bit more yellow than the color I might pick originally. Anyway, so now to this guy, let's say he's wearing a green hat and his thing is orange, so okay, we can't use this green. That will not work. See a color like this? No. See, that's gonna kill your eyes. Kills my eyes. So we got to, it's pretty far from the main color, so maybe something like this. Yeah. See, that works again. So just knowing what is available and acceptable is good. It's what makes this technique pretty effective. It's not true to life. It's not like life. It sometimes kind of works like this, but not always, because you can have white light and then you can have many different colors. Because in this one, it's like, well, if I have red, then I can't have a saturated blue. But of course you can. In real life, you can have a saturated blue. Why not? Especially if it's a light, then yeah, you can break. It's not a rule, but of course, if you have a light, like a traffic light, right, then it's going to be saturated just because it's giving off the light. So let me just turn on my, yeah, see, that's why this one's not working, is the values are all messed up. So maybe I'll correct that. But first I just want to do this guy, get his skin tone in real quick. And again, letting some of that orange come through. Often this looks weird when you first start putting in the colors. It sort of looks wrong. And there might even be a temptation to just like, no, that's the wrong color. I need to be more colorful or more saturated or something like that. But resist that. At least in the beginning, resist that urge to fix your color. Because sometimes what I noticed when I started using this and figuring this out is that if I just trust it, I might get really far into the image and it looks wrong. It's like, it looks wrong, it's gonna be, this isn't the right color. And then eventually, as more and more colors are around that color, it starts to work. So like here, it's starting to work now, where colors are sort of behaving and it doesn't look so weird. Let's see. Let's say he's just wearing a green shirt. Can go desaturated. Get that in there. And the eyes, gonna be very desaturated gray blue. And then I did mention in one of the other videos I've done already about warms and cools, and how you can take the color and then sort of move towards a warm. So I'm going to just do that for his lips. I'm going to take the original color and just sort of bend it towards a bit more red. And in that video, people would ask me, really, how do you figure out the starting color? Well, in this one, you don't have to worry because the starting colors are all there. And again, see, this reads as green. You look at his shirt, you look at his hat, and it's definitely green. When I click on his shirt anyway, it's a very dull yellow. It's not green at all. And I could use that even in the background, and it would be fine to like make him pop off the page. Could do that. And I'm sort of scribbling it in because I want some of that orange to show through. So, not just doing it because I'm lazy. I'm mostly doing it because I'm lazy, but not only doing it because I'm lazy. Anyway, yeah, so I just want to darken Mustard Girl's hair. I feel sorry for her now. I keep calling her Mustard Girl, and she's gonna just be very sad. But yeah, that's looking better. I mean, it's weird because it's a weird starting color, but at least it sort of fits. Especially in a comic, it's like, yeah, all these kind of fit, right? So that's that. That's my quick and dirty, pretty effective, not perfect, but works pretty well, color guide tutorial to help you. If it helps, I'm glad. I hope it helps. And thanks for watching.